1 month ago, Bondi Beach, December 14, 2025. It was a day of infamy in Australian history when what should have been a joyful family Hanukkah celebration turned into the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in Australian history. 15 people were murdered, dozens more were injured, and a permanent scar was left not just on Australia's Jewish community, but on the nation itself. In the days after the massacre, many people asked the same question: how could this happen here? But for Australia's Jewish community, as shocking as Bondi was, it wasn't a surprise. Because for years we've been warning that something was breaking in this country, that anti-Semitism was being normalized, that violent rhetoric was being excused, that red lines were disappearing. And we were told we were overreacting. But here's the thing. Since October 7, anti-Semitic incidents in Australia have risen by around 5.5 times. That's the largest increase affecting any Jewish community. Now I wish I could stand here and tell you that Bondi was the end of this epidemic of hatred that has been sweeping through Australia. But it wasn't. Less than 2 weeks after the Bondi attack, on Christmas Day, a rabbi's family's car, decorated with Hanukkah symbols, was set on fire in Melbourne, forcing the young family to evacuate in the middle of the night. This wasn't a random or isolated event, but part of the pattern that has plagued this country over the last 2 years. Even something as basic as inviting Israel's President Isaac Herzog to Australia sparked outrage. And not from extremists on the fringes, but from within mainstream politics. They were caused to withdraw the invitation, warnings that a visit could cause social unrest, even demands that he be investigated for genocide. Let that sink in. Jewish Australians, in the face of the worst tragedy to hit our community, were hardly given a moment's respite before attacks on Jewish symbols, including the State of Israel, resumed. And that's where the families of the victims, the survivors, and the Jewish communities pushed for more. We were joined by business leaders, politicians, security experts, academics, legal figures, and others. Because when something this catastrophic happens, you can't just hope it'll go away. You're forced to confront it. And that's where a Royal Commission comes in. It's Australia's most powerful form of public inquiry, reserved for moments like this, when the nation admits that something went deeply wrong. For over 3 weeks, the government resisted. People asked why. Was it fear of what would be uncovered? Perhaps how anti-Semitic incitement became normalized? Or the roles that education, media, and political rhetoric played? Or most importantly, why Jewish Australians were left feeling unprotected in their own country? Finally, 25 days after Bondi, the Prime Minister relented and the National Royal Commission was announced. It shouldn't have been that hard. But what has given us hope in this is the overwhelming support from everyday Australians from all walks of life who stood up and said, this is not who we are. 1 month on, Australia's Jewish community is still grieving, but that grief has hardened into determination. Simply put, we want answers, and we deserve answers, because the days of silence are over. This Royal Commission won't erase the world's oldest hatred, but it may finally force Australia to confront it. Honestly, perhaps then this country can begin the long work of reclaiming the values it so proudly claims to stand for.